Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Poe, and today I'm doing week 3 of my 2021 reads. This week was an interesting variety of reads in that some of them I loved so much with my whole heart. Other ones were such a mixed bag, and then there were some that just did not work for me, including a DNF. So first, I finished Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, which I buddy read with Cousin at Always Doing and Cynthia at Book Whimsy, both of whom I will link below. And this is a modern classic set in the 1930s, written also in the 1930s, about a young woman who is very innocent, shy, unsophisticated, who ends up marrying a man twice her age and goes to live with him at his estate, Manderley, but is very much forced to deal with the specter of his previous wife, Rebecca, who everybody loved and adored, and she was so great at everything. It's very much in contrast to the current wife, who is really unprepared for everything. So this story is fascinating, and it was such a great book to buddy read and discuss because there was a lot to tease apart. There is a sense of foreboding, a sense of looming negative things to come. It is very much atmospheric, very gothic in feel, something that drives you forward, wanting to understand, wanting to unravel what's going on, the mystery of what exactly happened with Rebecca, the mystery of what's going on with the current wife. It's very, very engaging. I found that really pulled me through the story. However, it also has a number of parts that I really didn't like. Things about, especially kind of the relationship between the woman and her husband. And it was really fascinating to discuss those with Cousin and Cynthia, especially just seeing how our different views of the characters informed how we read the book. And when I got to the end of this book, I was so frustrated. I really didn't like some of the messages that I was getting out of this book. And I thought, this is so problematic in so many ways. And then I read the afterword, and that completely reframed how I saw the book, like completely. I do not really know what to rate this book. Actually, if you saw my weekend reading vlog, I'll link that below from last weekend when I was reading it and I finished it. You can see how confused I was. I just didn't know what to think, and I still don't know what to think. For now, I'm gonna go with 4 stars as my rating for this book, because when I finish it, I was thinking like 2.5. And then after the afterword, it was like, maybe this is 5 stars. And I still don't really know. So I think that this is a book where at some point I need to reread it, keeping that afterword in mind, and figure out, what does it mean? What is this book trying to say? Because the original message that I got out of it was really offensive to me. But then the afterwards message was really awesome to me. And so, yeah, I don't even know what to think. So if you have read Rebecca, let me know kind of what your experience was with that, because it was a fascinating experience. Next, I read The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nghi Vo. This is a reread for me, and I read it out loud this time to Sush, my husband, because I had loved it so much that I wanted to share it with him. I do have a standalone review for this book, so I will link that below. And this was just as good on reread. I loved it so much. It is basically kind of a low fantasy Vietnamese inspired world where there is a cleric who is interviewing a handmaiden of the previous empress and getting some of the backstory, and a lot of this is told through the cleric making records of the objects in the home where the empress had used to live, and the handmaiden telling stories related to those objects. This story, I think that it is just masterful. Rereading this, I am definitely cemented that this really was my top fantasy of 2020. It was so fantastic. The complexity of the world, the political intrigue, the characters, I'm just so amazed by everything that was done in this. It's really gripping, and I think that one of the things I really noticed on this reread was how much is unsaid. Nghi Vo lets you read and doesn't necessarily state outright exactly what happens, but you can infer it, and it's so powerful. I love this storytelling style. I was so happy to read it out loud to Sush, although I did get really emotional. I often cry while reading, but what I found was that I was crying while reading like the last 40% of this book, which is very hard to do while you're reading out loud because I was so choked up as I was reading. So interesting, I think, listening experience for Sush, but oh, it moved me so much. I loved this book so much. Obviously 5 out of 5 stars, and if you have not read it, it's a novella. It is 112 pages, so quick to read and just so stunningly good. So definitely pick this up. Next, I finished Little Fox by Edward van de Vendel, illustrated by Marietje Tolman and translated from Dutch by David Colmer. This is a children's picture book that is made by the publisher Levine Querido, which I am trying to read all of their published works, and it is a translated picture book. So I was really interested to see what this was, but it ended up not being quite for me. So the basic story is that there is a little fox who is very curious and goes exploring the world around him. This sounds like it should be really sweet, but it actually was really dark. The story itself is just something that I found the further I went in, the more kind of aghast I was at what this story was doing. And I don't know if that's just because the culture in the Netherlands is different in terms of the messages that are given to little kids, or if just I can't handle that kind of darkness in my picture books. I do like children's works that address heavy topics, but this just felt dark to me. So I did not enjoy reading that. And the artwork wasn't so much my style. It wasn't bad, it was just not my style. I did like that this book really has these photographs of forests and beach dunes and things like that as the background, and then the animals are drawn on top. And I liked that kind of style, that multimedia style, but the drawings were just not really for me. They're a little too rough for my taste. And it just was something where I really wanted to like this story, and I just did not. So for me, this was a 2.5 out of 5-star reads, although I do think that there is a very high likelihood that part of that is due to some kind of cultural mismatch between me and whatever the author was trying to say, and perhaps I just need to grow in that area. So those are all of the books that I finished this week, but I did also DNF a book, which was The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong, which I was buddy reading with Tori at Tori Morrow, who I will link below. I also, in that weekend vlog that I did the other weekend, was talking about this as I was reading through, so if you want more details, go take a look at that. But basically, this book, even though so many people have raved about how amazing it is, I just couldn't get into. I read about 20% of this before DNFing, and that truthfully was more than I should have read because I was so disengaged. I just couldn't get into it. I was not connecting with the characters or the story. In the vlog, I talk more in depth about kind of my feelings about it, but basically it comes down to this book was a little bit too over the top for me. So the characters are very, very good at different kinds of magic and fighting. Reminds me almost of like a Dragon Ball Z type of thing where they're just so amazingly strong. And that felt very much like a Mary Sue thing, just too over the top. There is a lot of fighting, which I think can be great for many people, but for me was just boring. There's a lot of kind of melodrama. There's too convenient plot points in terms of the way things turn out. It is something that I think could be so exciting to so many different readers, but for me it just wasn't, even though I do think that even in the first 20% there were so many little kernels of interesting themes. I think that the themes in this are probably going to turn out to be amazing. I just couldn't get through to find out what happened with the themes because it was such a slog for me. I just couldn't get through it, and I've heard so many people say that it really picks up at about the 30% mark, and I was so trying to get there and I just couldn't. So This is a book where I think that if you like these epic battles and, amazing powers and that kind of thing, then you won't be so turned off by that as me. And you'll get that chance to get through to the end of it and really see how it develops, because I know that this is going to have some really cool things it does. I just couldn't keep going. So DNF for me. Okay, so those are all of the books from this week. If you guys have read any of these, if you have any thoughts, if you have any recommendations, anything you want to chat with me about, go ahead and leave me a comment down below.